So I think for me, what I learned in sales is at first it was always you have to have these fancy scripts and you have to have all these talk patterns and you need to know all the data and blah 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 blah. And at the end of the day, yes, those things can be important. And also it comes down to the fact that people want to do business with people and they want to do it with people that they know, like, and trust. And especially when you're trying to influence someone to think about, hey, we're going to sacrifice a little bit of something today for the greater good of the future, that can be a difficult sale because people in general are very selfish. It's like, hey, what's in it for me? Well, that's a pretty objective question. Like, and most of us think about that when someone asks us, hey, what do you got going on? Immediately that little flag goes up and it's like, why?
Welcome to the Sustainability Transformations Podcast, a show where we unpack the bold ideas around sustainability and making change. But today we've got a special one where we are tackling mindset, purpose-driven growth, sales, and how these tools can power the transformation that we seek, whether in sustainability or elsewhere. So today I'm very pleased we're joined by Drewbie Wilson, a high-performance coach, best-selling author. From losing over 100 pounds to closing 13 million in sales, Drewbie lives by the motto, crush the day before it crushes you. So in these key topics, Drewbie, perhaps can you introduce yourself and your key motto of call the damn leads?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the listener giving me a little bit of their time. You're going to hear me talk about time being very important today. And so my name is Drewbie Wilson. I am the founder of a company named Call the Damn Leads. And long story short, it exists because I know that it's the one thing that if you will just do it consistently, it will change your life, whether it's creating money, opportunity, momentum, or heck, even a little bit of sustainability, which I'm excited to talk about today because I think there's so many different ways we can lean in on that topic.
That's good. So perhaps we'll start with your story in terms of the key turning point that pushed you to transform your health and life, and as sustainability transformation that we are seeking. Perhaps we can learn from your story of transformation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, I'm going to lean in on one that I think a lot of your listeners will probably understand or resonate with to some degree. So, when I was growing up, I was always the husky kid. I was always overweight, kind of, lacked that confidence a little bit. As I got older, I got married, met a pretty lady. We had a son, and it got to a point where I was watching my son and looking at myself in the mirror and going, this life isn't sustainable. The things that I'm doing are not going to put me in position to be here for my son in the long term. And in that same breath, my wife had come to me around that same time and was saying, hey, listen, I love you and I appreciate the life that we have, but all of this isn't doing it for me. And it's, I need to feel that excitement and love in our marriage too. And it was like a double whammy for me. Cause I'm like, well, we've got a beautiful family. We're married. We're happy. I don't cheat. Like, I don't do anything crazy. But I knew that if I was going to be a leader and I was going to be the example in my own family, I had to show up for myself first. And there's no way that you can plan on living a long time if you're not taking care of yourself. And with sales, especially as an industry, it is very high stress. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of things that, come with this position. And I realized that if I didn't get my act together, I wasn't going to survive. And a friend of mine, he came to me and he says, hey, man, how would it feel if you snapped your fingers and all of a sudden you're up in heaven looking down and there's some other jerk in bed with your wife in your home raising your son while he's crying in the other room because you're not around? Like, my whole world
Yeah.
came crumbling down on top of me. And I think it's important that the listener understands that if you're in a season like that, it's okay. Because when you start to get clarity and you understand that, hey, to create that sustainability in life, there's some things that you've got to do on a day-to-day basis that they're not always fun, they're not always sexy, they're not always exciting. But if you want to, what the definition of sustainability is to meet the needs of the present without compromising the future. Well,
Yeah.
if you want to meet the needs for the life that you're living right now, you're going to have to step up and do some things that you don't necessarily want to do. Because if you don't, you're literally going to compromise the time that you have with your family. Because time is the only thing we cannot buy more of, can't win in a poker tournament, and no one gets a card full of on their birthday. It's literally the thing that you have to be as intentional with as possible. And when I think about sustainability, how you spend your time and what you spend it on is ultimately what's going to lead to the life that you want. And for me, that big shift was the realization that the only one who can really control my time is me.
That's brilliant. And as you were speaking, it reminded me that within the sustainability, majority of our conversation is about how the environment can be sustained in the long term. But we hardly ever speak about how we as individuals, we can sustain ourselves. And
Mm.
so this conversation is helping us to see that, yes, it's good about the externals, but more importantly, what's inside, what is us is very important. So that sort of drew my attention to those key aspects.
Well, what I think is interesting too is if you want to go kind of like one level deeper with it, if creating the world around you starts with you, your mission in your business is to create sustainability in the economy or in the ecosystem, right? You want to reduce waste or you want to improve efficiency in the energy departments. Like those are all great things, and that's all what sustainability really is. But the question you have to ask yourself is if you're not taking care of yourself and thinking about the sustainability of yourself, are you really able to give a full effort to the sustainability of everything around you?
Absolutely. And the world needs those that have passion for the environment. You have solar or a circular economy of waste where those sectors may work in more long-term, purpose-driven fields, or you have some investors that prefer to invest in some social initiatives. Regardless of all of these fields, how do leaders or individuals stay consistent when the results are maybe uncertain or slow, but the key goal is long term? So I know you've touched on some of it, but I'm trying to tease out even more from what you've already shared.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, from a leadership top down perspective, it's about the metrics and the KPIs or the key performance indicators. So when you're looking at, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, there's always a base level of, hey, this is what's acceptable. Anything above that is either really, really good or really, really bad. And anything below it is vice versa, right? It's up as good or up as bad, and then it goes for the opposite the other direction. And from a leadership perspective, our goal is to have a foundational understanding of the base metrics. So where are we right now today, right? If sustainability is the goal, what are the needs of today? And how are we using that data, that information, those metrics to prepare for what's going to be needed in the future? And so if you're a leader, your job is to know what do we need right now and today, because like your job is to get everybody under you to be successful today,
Yeah.
and also thinking about how are we leaning into the fact that being successful today also has to mean being successful in the future. And so I think as a leader, the goal is to understand how are those metrics being improved and what levers do we have to pull within whether our personal life or the professional life to continue moving the needle towards the desired result.
That's a very useful insight. From a sustainability field, I know some of the things I mentioned, I keep saying sustainability field, but a lot is probably a general business challenge. But one of the key challenges that sustainability leaders who are trying to sell sustainability, we tend to face is it would appear that we are giving an either or. No, you have a business decision person would say we are only focused on the short term earnings. What you are proposing is too long term. And it would appear sustainability may say, oh, no, you have to look at the long term. But I think from the previous one, no, we have to find a way to be able to be presently, certainly, but on the long term. So you have the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company is around 14 to 16 years, whereas in the past it was more. And so the ability to stay on top You have to plan long term. The reason for sharing those aspects was going towards the next question around the amount of sales that you've made. Leaders selling sustainability to the board that they have to pursue this. There has to be a way of learning the art of selling. As I mentioned before, it might be a company that they have a new way of recycling the materials, which can gain some money back for the organization, which instead of going to landfill and paying fines to the government, you've sold over 13 million worth of services. What number one mindset shift really taught you about selling with purpose and with key intent? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, what I learned in sales is at first it was always you have to have these fancy scripts and you have to have all these talk patterns and you need to know all the data and blah 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 blah. And at the end of the day, yes, those things can be important. And also, it comes down to the fact that people want to do business with people and they want to do it with people that they know, like, and trust. And especially when you're trying to influence someone to think about, hey, we're going to sacrifice a little bit of something today for the greater good of the future, that can be a difficult sale because people in general are very selfish. It's like, hey, what's in it for me? Well, that's a pretty objective question. Like, and most of us think about that when someone asks us, "Hey, what do you got going on?" Immediately that little flag goes up, and it's like, "Why? No, I'm 40 years old. I don't want to help you move a mattress down 3 flights of stairs for some pizza and beer, man. Like, no, go hire a company for that." Like, so in general, humans are a little bit on defense. And so what you really think about when it comes to especially selling the sustainability aspect of like, hey, it's a small sacrifice today for a greater tomorrow, it's kind of like explaining to someone you got to go to the gym. If you want to go back to me, when I was 315 pounds at my biggest, the only way to make a change was to put in the work and to make those sacrifices. Like, there's no other way around it. And even the people who are trying to shortcut it with like the weight loss drugs and all the surgeries and all that, 9 out of 10 times they go right back to where they were when they stopped doing that little shortcut. When it comes to a big business and thinking about how am I going to sell like the board, let's say, on making this investment in this thing that's going to be for the future, you got to get to know the board. What's important to them? Why do they care? Because as you said earlier, maybe their only goal or focus right now is on those quarterly earnings. And they don't care about what the end of the year number looks like. They just need to hit that quarterly number because that's what their bonus is based around. And so now as a sales guy, my job is to understand what can my product or service or the thing that I'm trying to deliver them, how can it buy them back time? Because time is our most valuable asset. We all know how to make more money, right? That's just like a figment, woo woo, whatever. We can attract it, we can find it. Like money is easy. But time is the one thing you can't get more of. So how are you going to influence that individual to understand that the time that they're going to invest is going to pay off massively? And or how are they going to have more time to do the things that they want to do by implementing the strategy that you're bringing to the table? Hopefully I'm explaining that well.
Absolutely. I know at the start you mentioned we will go into time, but now I understand where we can go into and then you can expand on that. As you were saying, it reminded me that a common denominator between the Amazon and the Netflix and a lot of the successful companies is they've saved humanity time. And so instead of going to the shop and spend half of my day to buy one product, I can just at a click of a button, or Netflix instead of going to get some DVDs. There's a host of examples. So can you perhaps expand a little bit about what are the key strategies or insight that aspect of time?
Well, I'm glad we were able to tee this up because there's really a two-part answer to this question for you. So it may be a little longer, so bear with me, y'all, but I really believe this is going to be insightful for you. So first and foremost, let's talk about Amazon, Netflix, the internet as a whole. What it has given us is access to instant gratification. As in, if you need to know something, you can literally pull up your phone and within 60 seconds, you can have the answer to like the wildest questions ever. Now, are those answers 100% accurate? Again, the internet is the internet. You got to be careful where you're sourcing your information from. Let's not lie to ourselves here. However, the majority of it at this point, anyone anywhere that has a Wi-Fi connection can get instant access to the things that they want, good and bad, right? And I won't go into the privy of the internet and what exists out there, but the fact is we love immediate gratification. And what is difficult in humans is it's very hard to recreate that in the big picture. Which is why, again, if you want to go back to people working out and losing weight, there's no immediate gratification there. You don't go to the gym for a week and all of a sudden all the weight's gone and everything's hunky-dory. No, it is a long-term investment in yourself. Again, going back to sustainability, you're sacrificing a small amount of time today to create a much better future. And so when I think about time, the thing that you have to first understand about time is you don't know how much you're going to have. And so what I worry about is most people don't value their time accordingly. And what I mean by that is they're investing the one asset that they cannot get more of into places that have no return possibilities. So what I always encourage when I'm working with, individuals or companies as a whole, hey, what is your time worth? And the easiest way to kind of break this down from like an hourly wage standpoint or mindset is to say, hey, take all the money that you made last year. Your main job, maybe you have side hustles, maybe you're selling pictures of your piggies on the internet or whatever. Like, I'm not judging, I'm just saying. Like, the internet's full of weird stuff, and you can make a lot of money doing all sorts of stuff on the internet, right? Even podcasting can make you money if you do it right. But if you're putting in the energy and effort to do those things to make a dollar back, let's add all that up. And then we have to divide it by the number 2,000, because an average person, and I know if you're here with us today, you're not average because you're learning and your personal development skills, like you're focused on more. So you're not average. But if you were, you'd work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. You'd probably take 2 weeks for vacation, maybe have a couple of sick days, whatever. And so the math comes out to if you made 100,000 pounds, dollars, lira, whatever your currency is, right? Add all of that up and you divide it by 2,000 at 100,000 for the year, your time's worth $50 an hour. And, depending on where you grew up or what life you came up in, that may either be a really lot of money or it may not be very much. But here's the really scary part. And this is kind of where the sustainability plays in. If I put my hood on, for those of you that aren't watching, I'm just putting my hood on. I'm knocking on the door. Hello, my name is Death. Congratulations, you have 24 hours left to live. Here's a check for the dollar amount that you just calculated your time to be worth. How does that make you feel?
Yeah. It's scary, isn't it?
It's very scary.
Scary.
And what's even scarier is all of us realize that at some level, there's a number to where if someone said, hey, I'll give you 10 million, 100 million, for an hour, you would start being willing to, sidestep some of your morals and ethics because you start to question, well, what could I do with that money? It's a tool and a resource that I know I need in my life to provide for all the things that matter to me, whether it's my business, my family, whatever. So we all know that we're going to exchange time for money. The issue is a lot of individuals on this planet right now are putting their time into things that will not get them the life that they want. And I can't tell you what that life is because success is a perspective. My version is different than yours, Enoch. And if you asked our parents on the day we were born, hey, what will be their life if they're successful when they're older? It's drastically different than what we're doing right now, which is one of those things when you think about what is your time worth and where are you spending it? Because when you start thinking about it that way and you realize, hey, there's only 24 hours in a day if I'm blessed enough to have the full day, and God willing, I wake up tomorrow. But if not, what am I going to do during this 24 hours to make sure that I've done everything possible to invest my most valuable asset wisely?
That's a unique insight around appreciating time and different perspective of looking at what time is. So coming back to the sustainability sales process, how do you differentiate between sales which are seen from a sustainability point of view where it's a hype because it's too futuristic, or sales which are more purpose driven or around the time save perspective which you already shared?
No, that's a great question. So I think to kind of continue on from what I was talking about earlier, right? People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, how can you create a level of know, like, and trust with these individuals? Well, you can be empathetic, which means that you can relate to them, that you ask questions, that you genuinely care about someone else's well-being, sometimes more than your own in certain scenarios. And there's limits and boundaries, and we won't go into that part of the conversation, but the fact is, like, if you want to be an interesting person, you have to be interested in other people, because it's you asking questions and learning about someone where they're going to tell you all of the things that matter to them most. And when you have that level of trust with someone, your job is to educate and entertain them, because humans are humans, right? We want to be educated and we want to learn and we want to grow. And also, we want to laugh. We want to have fun. We want to, be entertained. We want to joke
Sure.
around. That's where the camaraderie comes into play. And so, when you're trying to convince someone or influence them to be more in line with your purpose or your mission when it comes to sustainability, first and foremost, you have to get to know them. What matters to them? Because if you can get to know what matters to them, well, then you can help them reframe how your purpose or your mission is going to bring value to that thing.
Yeah.
And that is the secret to sales, as far as, can you relate the thing that they care about to the product or service you're going to deliver, so that they feel like it is literally the only answer to solving the thing that they want.
That's interesting. As you were exploring that, I remember a quote which is more a social quote, where I think it was Maya Angelou that said, "People will always forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel." So, as you were talking about it, that's a relevant quote. No, not necessarily the full quote, but from what you've mentioned.
Absolutely. That's such a great quote, because again, a lot of times, and maybe you've experienced this when it comes to sales or buying something, right? Maybe you walked into a building and you had full intention of spending a large amount of money on this product or this thing. You're super excited about it, and the individual that you go to work with is a dud, and they're just not nice, and they don't have the same you're just like, you kind of get turned off, and you're like, I personally have walked out of businesses like where I had intended to spend lots and lots of money, because the individual that I met didn't treat me well.
Yeah.
And there's also been times where I've gone into a place with no plan of spending any money, and the person was so awesome that I just felt like, I'm gonna buy something today, and I didn't even play, like, we've all bought something on a whim because of the way someone made us. And I think that quote is so good, because it is, when we went and we bought something and we didn't feel good about it, what happens? We get buyer's remorse, we return things, we feel guilty and we shame ourselves. Like, I shouldn't have bought that thing. Like, I feel, Isn't that interesting how the human mind will put these labels or expectations on these interactions based upon how you felt when you were done at that time?
Yeah, that's good insight. So, from a leadership perspective, clearly you've been very successful with business aspects. But how has it evolved over time in terms of inspiring teams? And I asked that from sustainability. Sometimes we've seen some very good CEOs like Paul Pullman of Unilever, who was able to inspire teams on sustainability, but also economically making the company successful as well. So, I'm curious to know any tips you have around being able to inspire teams that we can learn from.
So for me, kind of my own story of things is like, I've always been, or was always initially, kind of a lone wolf. It was kind of like, hey, I don't want to have to wait for anybody else. I don't want to worry about what they got going on. Tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to go get to work. And don't put anybody in my way, because I'm going to run them down. And, that for a time, it worked. It made me successful in certain areas. And also, what I realize is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Right.
Because when you think about sustainability, you can't put your pedal to the metal in a race car and just run forever. Guess what
No.
happens? It runs out of gas, it overheats. There's certain parts of that you have to think about, because it's not just a one and done situation.
Yeah.
And so for me, the shift of leadership was really, I was trying to learn a new online marketing tactic. I was like, hey, I want to learn how to build these websites and do all this stuff. And I had someone who reached out to me, because I was a part of an online community like this, and I was sharing my journey and asking questions, and someone was watching, kind of like I'm sure they're watching you, Enoch, and what you're growing and building here on this amazing show. what happened is he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I see you're asking some questions about how to do this, this, and this. And here's what I will propose. I will teach you how to do the things that you want to learn how to do.
Right.
In exchange, I need you to go and teach others in this community how to do it because I don't have the time as one man to teach all of these other people the way that I could just pour into you. So if you're willing to take this knowledge and teach it to someone else, I will give it to you. I won't charge you any of that." You want to know what my response was?
Yes.
Why would I give away the secret sauce? If I want to be successful, wouldn't I want to just learn how to do it for me? And this was the big shift. He says, "Well, sure, you can do that. And you can learn everything that I'm going to teach you on YouTube and the internet. But if you want to save time and you want to get to the answers faster, I need you to be willing to go and teach the next person." And I was like, well, I don't want to waste time trying to figure it out on my own. That's why I'm in this group. That's why I'm asking these questions. So I'm going to make the sacrifice to, when you teach it to me, I will go and I'll create a training video on my, like, as I'm doing the thing that you taught me, I'll just record myself and I'll go share it into the community. And that one decision took me from making, $30,000-$40,000 a year to getting an opportunity to make multiple six figures, to becoming the VP of that company I was with, to building all the brand. Everything that I've done in life came from a series of decisions and conversations, but that one in particular put me on the path to leadership because when I learned that the ability to learn for the sake of teaching someone else, it put me in a different level of leadership. And when I think about how do I sustain the growth of any company, it starts with your ability to teach the next person how to do your job so well that they could take your job from you. Because a leader's job is to continue growing and to continue leading. And to lead, you have to be out in front for the most part. So if you want to really transition and be a good leader, you have to start creating sustainability in that everything you do has to be recorded and has to be repeatable. And if you can do that, then the future is, there's a lot of growth that's possible.
So call the damn leads and crush the day, which are very memorable. How do these messages resonate with your team or the people that you work with?
So let's start with crushing the day because that was the first motto that I kind of used because, again, I had mentioned that, in my journey, I was at a point where I was overweight, I was unhappy, I wasn't feeling very fulfilled. And that mindset shift of saying, hey, I'm going to wake up and crush the day, and looking at myself in the mirror and going, crush the day before it crushes you. Crush the day before it crushes you. And just doing that over and over and over. It was the reminder that, listen, the world is kind of a scary, weird, crazy place. And at this point, in 2025, when we're recording this, we can easily wake up, open our phone, and go to social media and start seeing some of the most toxic, nasty, bad, awful things on the planet. Because again, the internet gives you free will. You can go and see all the good stuff, you can see all the bad stuff. And humans, all the good is good. We tend to remember the bad more. Think about it. You have all these amazing life events that have happened to you, but the ones you remember most are typically the worst. And until you learn to focus on the good and crushing the day before it crushes you, inevitably you run that cycle. You wake up, you get an email, you watch the news, you're bummed out, so then you're not as confident, you're not as happy, you get, a nail in your tire on the way to the job, or your boss is bitching at you because you didn't do something right, and it's so easy to let this overwhelm you. But I know if I just wake up and I say, hey, crush the day before it crushes you, go do all the hard things that you need to do before anything else has a chance to get in your way, the momentum that you create there, no matter what comes at you through the rest of the day, you can handle it. And if you do have a bad day, you just wake up and you mark it off and you move on to the next one because you've been blessed with that time to redo, to try again. And it's putting in those reps that really allows you to succeed. And so that's where crushing the day comes from. It's literally my own motto to myself of like, hey man, get up and crush the day because it will crush you every chance it gets. And, calling the damn leads is kind of a further extension of that. It's just doing the work. It's, hey, what is the thing that you need to do in your industry or your profession that's going to allow you to provide your product or service to the people who need it? And even though most of us hide behind text messages and all the different things that go on these days, there's still value to human connection. which is why you built this podcast, because at the end of the day, there's lots of information and there's lots of blogs and books you could read, but it's these sorts of conversations that create a level of know, like, and trust that is much, much more difficult
Yeah.
without human interaction. And so I still believe that if you pick up the phone and you call the damn leads and you do the work and you actually genuinely care about other people, well, then guess what? It's a Zig Ziglar quote. I'm going to steal it from him because it's so good. But if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you're going to get what you want. And this goes back to our conversation about how do I convince the board to implement the sustainability thing, or how do I get people on board with this mission? Well, they got to know what's in it for them. They got to know that they're getting what they want from this deal so that you can get what you want.
So businesses now more than ever are keen to build a brand around their social responsibility, which falls under sustainability, or their environmental, whether they are recycling more waste. What are some of the strategies that they can learn from building a very engaging and authentic brand, whether it's businesses showcasing their sustainability aspect, or it might be more renewable energy or some company which is fully sustainable? What can they learn about building a engaging and authentic brand?
Well, I think let's look at sustainability in the sense as a business owner. If your goal is to make enough money to last, what'd you say? I think it's 15 to 16 years for a Fortune 500, which doesn't seem very long.
Doesn't seem long,
Time
no.
flies these days, right? And the
Yeah.
world's always changing. But if you want to build that brand and you want to be sustainable, well, you have to bring in more money than you spend. And so if you're going to be branding and marketing and putting that number, those dollars out on the street to work for you to get the attention, you should probably have a good system and process for reaching out and following up with those individuals whose attention you've gotten, right? You should probably be calling the damn leads. And it doesn't matter if you're a fully sustainable energy company, or you're, out there trying to sell solar, or you're just a small mom and pop business that sells something to your local community and you just want to keep the doors open. If you're going to spend money to market and to build your brand, you need to have a way of continuing to communicate with those individuals. Because we see, I think it's on average somewhere between 6 and 8,000 different advertisements a day. With
Wow.
social media and the internet, like every time we open, there's a logo, there's a brand, there's something in our face that's saying, hey, buy me, know about me, get to know me, trust me, I'm the one to help you, right? This is all like all day long, we're seeing these things. And so if you want to stand out, you have to be top of mind. And unless you have an unlimited budget to keep spending more money to get more attention, attention is fleeting. What did you say? They don't remember what you did for them, but they remember how you made them feel. I probably butchered that quote, but like,
Oh
hey,
no, it's just all right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've done it.
if you're building a brand, when people see your logo, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're part of the tribe. It makes them feel like they're part of your movement. And so to me, if you want the brand to grow and you want it to be sustainable, you have to make them feel like they're part of it. They have to have ownership in that. And what I love about Call the Damn Leads is anyone who's built a business to some level of success, they know at the core, it was them going out and putting in the work and having those conversations and influencing someone else to believe in them and to trust them enough to help them get their, the thing that they want. And that's how they continue to grow. And that's where the real genuine authenticity of it comes. And what's cool about social media is that if you get a good story out there and you tell your story and you come out on a podcast like this and you explain why your mission is so important and why people should care about it, your brand will grow because other people will feel excited to talk about it and want to share it. And what I hope is that anyone who's been here listening to this show today gets so excited about the idea of sustainability and how sales can actually lead to more of it, that they want to share it with someone they know, that they want to send it to their boss and be like, hey, boss, like we're trying to do this thing. Like, check this episode out. How cool is that? Give them the reframe, educate them on what's actually going on around them. And that's how your brand will grow.
Thanks for sharing that. So some of our listeners perhaps are passionate, but they are invisible online. So how can someone who's starting build some confidence, but also become more clear where the key messages all stand out as well? I know you shared the overall, but for those who are starting out, what are some specific areas to gain confidence and become more clear, be brave and be gone, so to speak?
That's a great question. I was always kind of introverted when I was growing up, so like being online and being in the spotlight was definitely not something I was excited about or wanting to do at all. So for those of you that are like that or consider yourself introverted, hear me out. Facts tell, stories sell. And I think I swiped that quote from Ed Milet, but it's the facts will tell you everything you need to know, but it's the story that gives you the feeling and the belief that this is the answer for you. And whatever your struggle is in life, whatever the thing that you're fighting through or pushing past, that is your story. And the story is the thing that people want to hear. We don't care about the facts. That's why the internet is so full of nonsense, because people don't care that it's true. They just want to know, how does it make them feel? Do they feel passion about that thing? Do they feel like in their heart of hearts that that's the right answer? And so if you want to get out there and you want to build your brand and you want people to know what you have going on, you got to tell your story. And the easiest way to do that is to pick one social platform and just post to it one time every day. Start there. Get up, tell a story online, talk about your day, talk about what you got going on. Don't use it as a place to just bitch and complain about life, because I promise you, no one else, misery loves company. And going back to what I said, if you put out bad energy, guess what's going to keep coming along with it?
A lot
Bad
of them.
energy. Yes. And so just get out there, tell your story, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, but do it in a way that helps others see what they can learn from the story, so that they don't have to waste their time, energy, and effort making the same mistakes or going through the same issues that you did. And that kind of comes back to the mentorship and the leaders. And if you're not surrounded by people who you feel are giving you the information that you need to take that next step in life, I encourage you to keep listening to shows like this, explore other people. There are folks out there in the world who would love to share their story with you, because they know that if they make an impact on one person, that one person can make an impact on the world. And that's why I'm so grateful for an opportunity to be here and share with you on, today's show, because I know that if one person hears this and one person decides to make some new decision in their life, well, then we've got a much, much more exponential chance of actually making a difference in this world. And, hey, let's meet the needs of today and get people through today. Let's get them excited about how they can go out and do amazing things and know that it's going to create a better tomorrow.
I know you've touched on a few of them, but if there was any parting message for business leaders, aspiring sustainability leaders working with businesses, or maybe it might be an individual who's like, yeah, I think I really advocate for these sales or this purpose driven, and I'm really into this sustaining myself as well as the environment that I care about. What are the final words of advice you would give?
Trust the process, because, again, most things that are great take time. And what we've seen, we've probably all seen that meme where the guy on the top is like, hammering away and he's about to hit the diamond mine, and the guy below him is like right there and he's turning around and walking away. You got to trust the process. Anything great's going to take time. And if you want to create real sustainability and you want to really lean in on this whole movement and idea of it, you're going to have to trust the process, because it's not going to be an immediate change. It's going to be something that happens over time.
Great. A huge thank you to Drewbie Wilson for sharing these incredible insights, learning from all areas of purpose with time, finally, the trusting the process as well. So, if our listeners want to learn more about your work, where can they find you, Drewbie?
You can go to callthedamnleads.com. That has all of our resources. It's got all of my contact information. We sell hats, keychains, wristbands, all kinds of fun swag for your sales team. We have books and training. I've written 4 books that you can check out on there. So lots more to my story and all the things I could share with y'all. But the best thing that you could do, honestly, to find me would be to share this episode on social media. Tell someone else about it. Send it to someone that you think could really learn from it. And when you tag us, it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to let me know that you actually invested some time here today, which we all know now is your most valuable asset. So I'm going to be really, really grateful to know that. And it's going to help Enoch know that this show affected someone and it was worth his time to be here and the effort to keep putting this out, because not everyone's willing to invest their time, energy, and effort into something like this to help other people. And the fact that you're doing that, man, it means the world. So I hope the listener will do us that favor. They'll share this episode on social media. They'll tag at Call the Damn Leads, and then we'll know that it made a difference.
That's great. If you look in the description, you can easily access those as well. So thanks. Follow us on Sustainability Transformations podcast and subscribe to hear more deep dives.